Welcome to the Climate Buzz podcast. The Climate Buzz is hosted by Dr. Bob Hanna, Kelly Sheehan, and Brad Rouse. Each week we share with you the stories, the people, the science, the challenges, and the solutions of a warming planet. We invite you to like and follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages, where we promise to keep you up on all the latest climate buzz and share the links, information, and footage discussed on the show. The Climate Buzz originally aired live on Asheville FM, a nonprofit, volunteer-powered community radio station based in Asheville, North Carolina. Asheville FM is dedicated to producing diverse and eclectic programming that inspires our listeners to build connections across communities and to discover new music and ideas. The Climate Buzz airs live on Mondays, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and can be heard locally on 103.3 FM and streamed and archived at www.ashevillefm.org. Today's show aired live on May 8, 2023 on Asheville FM with Dr. Bob Hanna and Kelly Sheehan, and guests Roseanne, Kiely, and Karina Lizotte of the West Village Market. Enjoy. Well, we'd like to welcome into the studio today Roseanne, Kiely, and Karina Lizotte to the show. And Roseanne's the co-founder of West Village Market, while Karina, who's a manager there, is the longest-standing staffer, 11 plus years and counting. The West Village Market is committing to providing our community with locally sourced, organic, and healthy foods, drinks, and products to support living well, as well as an array of artisan crafts and goods. And their mission includes eliminating food and packaging waste with composting, package-free bulk items, food donations, and an ongoing TerraCycling program. And Roseanne and Karina, welcome to the Climate Buzz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to say, it was somewhat 10, 11 years ago that Roseanne sponsored my first Asheville FM show, Living Well.
That's awesome.
Back then, you had to find your sponsor.
Right.
And so they only played on your show. So for many years, Roseanne, I'd start my show with talking about the West Village Market. Mm-hmm. And so you're a real early supporter of Asheville FM and community radio. So,
Yep.
So good to have you back on the show again, Roseanne.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
It's fun to be here on your show.
We're missing Brad today.
That's true.
Brad,
our climate warrior.
Our climate warrior is still overseas. And I saw in the news, we were talking last week, Bob, about how he's in Spain and then, right, in Portugal. Is that where Bob is, right? Or is that where Brad is right now?
I'm actually not sure exactly which country he's in
I think
right
that's
now.
what he said.
But he is posting kind of regularly on social media about his adventure.
In the middle of a heat wave, a huge heat wave in the Mediterranean area.
We reported on that last week about Spain.
We did. And then just yesterday or a couple days ago, international team of scientists put out an analysis that showed that indeed the heat wave happening is a result of climate change. They did some modeling that showed that this unprecedented heat wave in the area would not have, it's very unlikely as is, but it would have been almost impossible in a world that hadn't been warmed by decades of carbon emissions. So I thought that was worth noting here, given where Brad is right now.
Well, and I assume that many people in Europe are really nervous about what this summer is going to take, because if you all remember last summer, how bad it was with the wildfires and the droughts and just unprecedented heat waves in that area. Remember going all the way north into Scandinavia and such? As people were like, I think they have a real sense there of this crisis that is unfolding.
And without air conditioning or any things like that, because the weather doesn't usually get that hot. Yeah. And I know we're already seeing wildfire season in Western Canada. Maybe you all saw that.
I haven't seen that, yeah.
There's, I was looking at that this morning as well, that 24,000 people have had to evacuate their homes because of rampant wildfires. And Western Canada in the province of Alberta, state of emergency right now, unprecedented crisis. So those are the headlines of unprecedented that become more and more precedented, right, as we go on.
Right. Yeah, and the Climate Buzz is committed to keeping you informed of what these stories are, either locally or all around the world. And it was a couple months ago that I actually came across this article on that is looking at food waste and food waste emissions. It was done. It was published. It was a study that was published in Nature Food. And it was reported by Orla Dwyer, who is at the Climate Brief. So if you're interested in reading the story, because it's full of information, it was a UN study that was done on global food waste emissions. And so there's a lot of information in there. So if you go to the Climate Brief, which is a website on the internet, you can get this. And I had no idea just how impactful food waste is. When it comes to carbon emissions, it's something that 1/3 of all food produced is either lost or wasted each year, according to the UN Food and Agricultural Organization. So 1/3 of the food that is produced is either lost or wasted, and that's something that in 2017, global food waste resulted in 9.3 billion tons of CO2 equivalent emissions, which is roughly the same as the total combined emissions of the U.S. and the EU the same year.
Good grief.
Yeah. And
the upside.
Yeah, Roseanne, please.
Yeah, please find an upside.
Yes.
Only that there's a UN goal by 2030.
Yeah.
To have those emissions that come from agriculture,
Right.
from food waste.
So in 7
In
years,
7 years, that's really
they want to
impressive.
see how can we cut food waste in half. Yeah, very ambitious goal, huh?
Very ambitious.
And it's remarkable. This covers 164 countries. It follows them between 2000 and 2001 and 2017. And it's a unique study in that, it looks at it through all the way through the supply chain. So, it from kind of growing it to harvesting it to storing it to sending it to getting it into the consumer, the consumer to eat. Where I think it said something like once it gets to the consumer, about half of that food gets wasted.
Right.
So even though, they go through all these, when some of this food comes from all over the world, right, and stuff, but by the time we buy it, we're not doing a very good job, in managing what is realistically our food intake. And they say somewhere in, it's they also look at kind of developing countries who may not have refrigeration and may not have some of the technology and resources for food waste. That a lot of that just gets rotted because there's no way to, or it sits in the fields because they don't have enough to get it off, to get it to market, so to speak, because they just don't have the technology for it. And then there's, kind of they say that the study finds that China, India, the U.S., and Brazil generate just over 44% of the global supply-related emissions from food waste and 38% of the global waste management related emissions. So, that's telling us that, four major countries, almost half of what the supply emissions of food waste are. Yeah.
Right.
What jumped out at you, Roseanne, in the study as you were kind of given a look over?
Yeah, well, I'll jump back quickly to just
Please.
one thing you just said. And when we're talking about climate change, what sometimes we forget, another result or effect of climate change is the crops that are destroyed. The crops that are destroyed are some of that food that's rotting.
So tell us more about that.
Well, with climate change, there's floods. Say there's, certainly not fires because then everything just burns up. But if there's heavy rain and it ruins the crops, like I think strawberries were highly affected fairly recently. So all of that, or cold, if it's cold prematurely, and I guess in February it was cold and then in March it was hot. And so I think it was the strawberries that were affected by that, and so they just won't come to fruition. So they'll just rot.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the cost for the farmers of having to, first of all, the loss, and then having to replant. There's some of the economic consequences. So,
So when we have those unpredictable weather events, it's too warm, too early, the peaches blossom, and then we go back to normal kind of weather, and it freezes again, and then we lose that crop for the year,
right.
for example. Or you have a big crop in the Midwest of whatever it is, wheat or soy or whatever, and then there's massive floods, and then those crops are damaged,
Right.
and they're no longer in production, so they're quote wasted, but it's actually, yes. And tell us, I was thinking about that when I looked at this article. I was thinking about the, all the ways that the food system impacts climate. And we hear a lot about, of course, about how if you have a more plant-based diet, that it's better for the climate. And so that's, would one of you like to speak to that a little bit about the meat production and how that contributes to climate change emissions?
Well, I mean, just growing crops to feed to animals as opposed to feed to humans adds another step in the food chain, and takes a lot more water for animal production, especially with large industrial scale farms. I think smaller farms tend to be a lot more connected to what's going on in their immediate, on their farm, and can do a better job of not, I don't know, being such a tax on resources.
The study says that when it comes to kind of supply emissions from food waste, that they break it into 4 categories. They look at meat and animal products, cereals, pulses, and others. What is pulses?
I think it's grains.
Grains, flour, yeah. To roots and oil crops and vegetable and fruits. And that food waste, supply emissions from food waste from fruits and vegetables is just 2.4% of carbon emissions. So we can see how friendly, as far as carbon emissions go, that, that fruits and vegetables can be. And yet when it comes to meat and animal products, 73.4% of our carbon emissions are driven from that. So that's right there, right, is why they're asking us to consider cutting back significantly on eating meat, right? It's not some conspiracy to take your freedom away,
right.
But that, it's a, literally they said that, where is it there? It was something that combining, having meat consumption, cutting it in half, meat consumption and having food lost and rain, having it again, HALV, making it in half with food loss and waste in generation would result in a 43% reduction in global food waste emissions. And it seems that really the use of animal products in this way is happening most in North America and Europe. That is where this is kind of predominantly the trend, where we are leaving a significant carbon footprint.
North America and Europe have larger proportions of their supply emissions resulting from meat waste, upwards of 85%.
And that's just meat waste they're talking about.
But I think it's the climate impact. So I think they're using waste to include the whole cycle, like we were talking about the crop waste that's not then fed, or that's used to feed the animals instead of to us, for example, to humans. Yeah, it's a really good report. I appreciate that you shared this one, Bob. There's a lot of good info in there, and I'm looking forward to the conversation too about all of the solutions. I know you all are intimately involved with all of the sustainable ag solutions here locally. And there's so many inspiring ones around the country, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a very interesting book in front of you there, Kelly.
I do. I feel like I'm like sliding into this role of being the book promoter on the show. It's one of my hosting roles lately.
Well, we should definitely put it on the Climate Buzz Facebook and Instagram
Okay,
page,
great.
you know, because, wow, what a cover.
I will. So this is Leah Penniman's new book. It's called Black Earth Wisdom, Soulful Conversations with Black Environmentalists. And if you don't know Leah Penniman, she is the founder of Soulfire Farm. She is an inspiring activist and self-described as a mother, soil nerd, author, and food justice activist. And Soulfire Farm is up in Grafton, New York, and it was founded in 2010 with the mission to end racism in the food system and reclaim our ancestral connection to the land. And so they run it's not only a sustainable farm up there, but it's also a gathering place and they do cohorts of mostly geared towards Black farmers who want to come and learn techniques on farming, but also about the history of land ownership and farming and how that has changed throughout the years here. And this new book is an anthology of Black environmentalist voices. It includes my very favorite author in the world, Alice Walker, and many other voices that really make the connection between racial and environmental justice, and with farming and sustainable ag at the center of it. So I highly encourage this. And yeah, sure, I'll put a little post and picture up on our social channels about this new book. I'm enjoying the conversation so far.
I'm curious for you two, Roseanne and Karina. You know, are there some farms that you consistently work with? You know, to kind of fill your shelves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, for produce, I have meat on my mind from the previous conversation. Yes. Oh, here's just a little tidbit from that article that I thought was so interesting.
I want to come back to it too, so go ahead.
Good. Okay, well, processing beef and lamb creates 13 times more emissions than tomatoes. 13 times. So... yeah,
I was wondering what chicken was, because a lot of people say chicken is an alternative of sorts, of at least a little easier on the carbon emission, and actually there's quite an interesting chart there that they will show animal-based foods tend to have a larger carbon footprint. They have a list of the common foods that we eat here in this article, and I kind of have to squint at it because it's kind of small.
Yeah, I don't remember that piece.
It actually has like things like coffee is fairly high up on the list, as well as dark chocolate. And after you look at beef and lamb, with it's actually cheese comes in next as having a high. Sorry, France.
Well, it's those cows again.
It is, and then it's the methane that's released through the cows processing and farting.
Yeah.
Which
so
is
chickens
crazy.
wouldn't be nearly as bad.
I know. And it seems, I remember when I first learned about the methane emissions from ag, I work mostly to stop the expansion of the oil and gas industry, which is the largest source of methane emissions, super pollutant, 87 times as potent as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere methane is. And then the second highest is from agriculture and literally from cow burps and cow farts is what is creating a tremendous amount of methane emissions. When I first heard that, I thought that can't be. And then you look up the number, it really is. It really is. And so the scale, it's not that all, I think sustainably and small farms and we have so many right here in Western North Carolina, awesome farms. Like I love Hickory Nut Gap, and I know there are many more. And, that's not the scale at which we're concerned about. It's the large industrial agriculture farms, mostly out west, a lot of them even on public lands. So it's taking land out of, natural habitat and really kind of the overgrazing grazing and compacting the soil and making it so that, that soil isn't really readily available for crops and other kinds of agriculture or for nature or natural ecosystems. That's kind of the massive scale we're talking about that leads to those kinds of carbon emissions.
And then the transportation on top of that.
Yeah.
If you're not growing it in your local community, you transport all the way from the Midwest to Asheville, North Carolina.
Right.
That adds to.
Because overall climate emissions in this country, the largest source is transportation. So that's our biggest source of emissions, and then electricity. It comes after that, which of course is needed for the processing as well, much more so for animal products, inclung cheese, sniff, sniff. And
coffee, sniff, sniff. Chocolate, sniff, sniff.
I love my coffee for sure. And much more so than your local farmer's market for your tomatoes in season, etc.
They say that in the article that it was in November 2022 that 21 countries committed to reduce food loss and waste in their national climate pledges under the Paris Agreement. And unfortunately, the United States is not committed to that yet. And that a lot of people are undertaking measures on more of a local or level of trying to make some changes. It cites that in 2016, France banned shops from throwing away unsold food instead required them to donate to charities and food banks. China's national legislature passed an anti-food waste law in 2021, setting out rules for public entities and private food and catering providers to improve food sourcing management. And in South Korea, the vast majority of food waste is recycled and used to create what they call bio oil and fertilizer. So, people, and, we're going to take a station break soon, but I think that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit, is what West Village Market is trying to do to impact our community and reducing food waste too. So, because I think that's how, a very important part of how we're going to solve this for sure.
Yeah. I think the study even says it's got to be solved on a local level.
They also mentioned an interesting thing that may come our way is carbon labeling. Where you will, don't you like that?
You're in good company when someone gasps yes about carbon labeling, right?
Yeah. Which would show the environmental impact of the food, could help reduce loss and waste, and that it's one aspect of a bigger picture of trying to think done. So we could look at a product and as well as see how much fat and sugar and all that and protein is in it. We can see where it ranks on a carbon scale, which makes a lot of sense given the crisis that we're in right now. Yeah. What do you like about that idea, Roseanne?
It just sounds fun. No, I think it would just be helpful for consumers, because I think so many people who shop, at least here, really care, but they just maybe don't know. A lot of things we make assumptions like we didn't know. A lot of people don't know cheese, what kind of impact it has, And it's kind of hard for us being in a retail business to label those kinds of things. It's like the GMO issue, if you label it, this could have GMOs. It's like, people, but they need to know and make their choices. So it just sounds like a real service to me to label things for people. I think they'd be so grateful.
Well, we're going to take a short break right here on the Climate Buzz. We've got Roseanne and Karina from the West Village Market in the studio today, and we're going to come back and have them introduce themselves a little more, and we're going to be talking some more about the West Village Market just down the street from the Asheville FM studio. We'll be right back. Well, if you're just tuning in today, Roseanne, Kiely, and Karina Lizotte of the West Village Market are joining us today in the studio. The West Village Market is committed to providing our community with locally sourced, organic, and healthy foods, drinks, and products to support living well as an array of artisan crafts and goods. Their mission includes eliminating food and packaging waste with composting, package-free bulk items, food donations, and an ongoing TerraCycling program. And Roseanne, Karina, welcome to the Climate Buzz.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we go ahead and have you both introduce yourself a little bit. And Roseanne, I know you have a long history in kind of the food of Asheville here, and got your start right at the, maybe not the start, but you were go far back and worked for some time with the French Broad Co-op, which is kind of one of the founding kind of local markets that's in this area?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it was even a food buying club early on down by the river, and then it went up to 90 Biltmore Avenue where it is now. With the help of Julian Price. I always like to say thank you to Julian, though he's long passed now. But then it became, available to the whole community. And that was in, 1990.
Yeah. And so back then, what is that, 33 years ago, they were kind of understanding kind of what needed to happen for healthy food.
Yeah.
At a time when, it was, most people, the only option you had was getting it from the big grocery store, right?
Right. And many things you couldn't get in the big grocery store till they started ordering in bulk. I mean, that's, many people know this, but I suppose some young people don't, that the natural foods movement really came about from buying clubs. And there would be distributors that would come in and they'd dump their load in a church parking lot. And then a bunch of community members would go there and pick up the stuff, split it up. I want so many pounds. And they'd split it up and take it home. And then it moved to wanting more people to have it available and to have it be more convenient. And then, natural foods became more popular. And that's why it became a storefront here and in many other places.
And the buying clubs were to be able to have access to organic products.
Yeah.
And what were some of the main, give us a little bit more. What were some of the main products that you would have in the buying clubs?
Well, a lot of the grains and rices, things like that. Some of it was before my time, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, because
Yeah.
I didn't really participate, but I certainly know the history.
We had a buying club in
You did?
college.
Uh-huh.
Yep. We were a co-op. I lived in a cooperative house for a year, and we bought, because we were a vegetarian house, and so we bought, I remember having like ungodly sheets of tempeh that would come in, and it was because I guess maybe there wasn't too many places to buy that yet or something, but
And
it
buckets of tofu.
and buckets of tofu, and then we had rice and grains, wheat, flour, stuff like that to be able to bring down the cost and have it available. I think also in ways that we couldn't get those quantities and locally, maybe.
Right,
I guess that was the idea. Okay. All right. Thanks for the little history.
So, Roseanne, what was it for you that kind of steered you in this direction and kind of wanting to work in this and in really some sense commit your life to this type of work?
Well, I guess I had brothers that were into natural foods, and it was kind of a non-thought to me, but when my brother introduced me to an author and nutritionist, Adele Davis, from way back, and I started following some of her food recommendations and diets and started to see how what you eat makes a difference in how you feel. And when you're in your early 20s or earlier than that, sometimes you don't really make the connection, you know what I mean? And so I started to see the impact of what eating really good food in a real focused way, what kind of difference that made. So I guess that's it. And then I worked for a natural food store for a long time in Savannah. So when I came here, that was just kind of where I went.
Yeah. How about you, Karina? What kind of propelled you into to working in the food? With food?
Well, I guess when I was in my early 20s, I started working in a natural food store, and now I've done such in several places. But as far as with this work specifically, in 2017, I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and started to realize how much of the food that we gave them just came out of disposable packaging. So that's when I kind of got laser focused on how to reduce some of that.
Wonderful, wonderful, yeah. So why don't we give a little history of the West Village Market too? Because it was there was a co-op there before, and I'm forgetting the exact name of the co-op.
Haywood Road Co-op.
It was the Haywood Road Co-op.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I showed up, because my office is in the same building. The Bledsoe building is what is referred to there, on Haywood Road, and I remember the co-op being kind of, it was kind of a little depressing to go into. There wasn't a lot of folks in there, and it you could tell it was having a hard time making it, as co-ops can be. And
maybe a little ahead of its time too. West Asheville didn't have quite the foot
That's
traffic
true.
and people. So I would think part of that was just, I remember it too. I lived in West Asheville, but it just seemed like we didn't have the level of the numbers we needed to be able to sustain that.
I remember when we first moved over in 2009, we were from downtown. We were in the Grove Arcade, and that just wasn't working for us for a variety of reasons. And at the same time, Haywood was having a hard time, and so they actually invited us to come over and do a store where they are, not knowing that we needed to leave the Grove Arcade.
Yeah.
So it was perfect timing. But at any rate, we were considering various spots. And I said, well, I'll go over there and see what kind of traffic they have. I'll just sit outside under that nice, beautiful tree and check it out. So, I sat there for a while. I thought, yeah, they have okay traffic. And I tell the story a lot because I laugh now, because I wouldn't have even had to sit down to see what kind of traffic there is now. I mean, I'm not just talking about cars on the road, but people on the streets.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's certainly a feature of Haywood Road, that there's a lot of walking traffic and people, there's a good access in that way. And yet, West Village Market, it kind of went through its own kind of growing pains and struggles to kind of become rooted in this community too.
Yeah, it did indeed. It wasn't a slam dunk.
No, at all.
I thought it would be. Well, part of it too is that when we were downtown, we wanted to be a full-on community grocery store. So we were selling conventional foods and specialty foods and natural foods in the hopes that we'd serve everyone and a variety of people would come together and rub shoulders,
Yeah.
But for various reasons, it didn't work. That was ahead of its time. And so when we came over here, we tried to do the same model, but that didn't work because Engel's was right up the street, and anyone who wanted conventional groceries would go there. So that was part of those growing pains. We had to figure out what our real mission was, and it was a lot of the things we stand for now. Also, good natural food and developing community is a huge part of what we're about. Being a place that's kind of a hub of the community and people can learn to trust each other. I wish it was a little more mixed, to be honest, racially mixed, ethnically mixed, but, that's Asheville. I don't know what we can do about that, but I'd love to think of something. If anyone out there has any ideas, bring them on.
Yeah. What do you remember about the early days, Karina, and working with the market and trying to, get it going?
Well, we worked with this one distributor, we still do, who sold things in eaches. And so things were pretty tight, and we would just get, small amounts of everything. And I remember going to Roseanne and saying, I think we need to order some things in cases. And there was just kind of this look of nervousness, like, really? Can we do that? And I was like, yeah, we need to do that. So I remember that for sure. And just growing certain departments. The bulk department is one thing that's grown a whole lot. The bulk herbs department has grown a whole lot. Bulk cleaning supplies. The supplements and body care departments have grown a lot. So just seeing those kind of get their footing and letting people know that we've got them and they can come in and get them there.
Mm-hmm.
You go into a store and you do see all the bulk items kind of, there. And do you find that all those different bulk items that you have that they're continually moving through, that people are coming in and using them and taking advantage of them? Or do you end up having a lot of food waste with your bulk items just, because it can be a challenging item to sell?
Well, I mean, with bulk,
Yeah.
things will happen. There'll be quality issues if it's not turning over. So, it comes to your attention pretty quickly when something's not moving. But I think everything we have right now sells pretty well and stays turned over and fresh. So
yeah, and the things that don't, like there was, we were trying to sell couscous, for instance, in bulk, and it wasn't moving as fast as we needed it to, and so we gave it to the deli. And that's what happens with a lot of our foods, including produce, so that it doesn't become food waste. It goes to the deli.
Yeah.
And do you all calculate, or have you ever thought of calculating kind of the amount of food you sell in bulk and how much making equivalent to be able to tell the story about the reduction in plastic waste or single-use plastic that you've kept out of the landfill as a result?
Well, we can certainly tell you, probably not this moment, but how much bulk particularly we've sold as a percentage of our sales. But never calculated.
It seems like it's because that's the story, right? Is that by selling in bulk, by people buying in bulk, that reduces the single-use packaging that you were talking about that came to your attention with kids. It really came to my attention with kids too. I have 3, and I had a set of twins the day after my oldest daughter was born, or turned 2. I had a set of twins. And so I had 3 under 3. And during those times, trying to keep up with making our own baby food and all the things, it really just trying to keep our heads above water became a thing where I started buying more things in packaged. And I hadn't had that for a while, as when it was, before I had kids, I had kind of gotten it down to be, not using much plastic waste and buying in bulk and those things. And then the convenience became a necessity. So I really resonate with your comment there that you start to notice it as you've got, the little ones going places and getting their applesauce in plastic cups and their yogurt or whatever it may be. But I've been moving more back towards the bulk purchasing lately, and just noticing, especially again from the oil and gas expansion in this country. The U.S. produces more oil and gas in this country than anywhere else in the world. And the big new market is for plastics, petrochemicals and plastics, which are going to fertilizers, which is related to this conversation here today about agriculture, and then to plastics. So those are kind of the 2 major growth areas for the oil industry. So the more we're doing to kind of on all along the points of intervention, from stopping projects and fracking projects to that where the oil and gas industry wants to expand, to make sure we have laws that protect our water quality, etc., is one piece of it, all the way to reducing plastic use by offering, products in bulk, cleaning products, and the bulk food products are, of course, a key part of that. So it really is, I think it's cool to make the connections between the local, what you're doing here, and how that plays into reducing the global climate emissions by kind of thwarting the expansion of the industry that really is causing the most emissions in the world, the oil industry.
Well, and I want to make sure that we have time to talk about the TerraCycling program. That is kind of another way to try to, navigate kind of packaging waste. And as far as I know, you're the only one in town offering TerraCycling. Is that right, Karina? And help explain to our listeners, just kind of what this is and how it's helping.
Okay. Well, Asheville Greenworks at their Hard to Recycle Days offers a couple of TerraCycle programs. They offer the body care program, That may be the only one they have right now. I'm not sure. And then also Ware is another store on Haywood Road that offers razor blade recycling and body care recycling.
Okay.
But at the market, we offer about 15 programs where we take back some of the packaging that we sell. So we take back coffee bags. We take back chip and snack bags, which is our most popular program. Bar wrappers. We take back body care items such as deodorant tubes and lotion tubes and things that you can't put in your normal weekly recycling. We take back baby food pouches, toothbrushes. So
Toothbrushes.
Yes, toothbrushes, toothpaste tubes. So there's a list online where you can see all of the things that we take, and then we submit them through the TerraCycle website. We get labels and we mail them to them. And so TerraCycle is a group. I'm not sure how long they've been around, and they've received lots of awards, but what their mission is to eliminate the idea of waste. And they warehouse it themselves, and then when they have buyers for the end product, they will recycle it into a lot of times industrial plastics, pallets. They make it into decking, they make it into playground equipment, benches, and I'm positive that a lot of it is still being warehoused. So it's all kind of a warehouse game from the ground up. You know, we may store it in our homes for 2 months till we have an event, and then we collect it, and then most of it we ship off right away. A little bit of it we store, and then when we have enough, we ship it in, and then they get it, and then they store it, and then when they can finally do something with it, they do. So, yeah.
And so you kind of, as far as how it happens at the market, is it kind of a monthly thing, or does it kind of, when you're ready to receive it, you just kind of put the word out in the community, and just to help people understand if they wanted to do this, what they could expect coming to the market with their TerraCycling?
Yeah. Okay. So every 2 months we have an event, roughly the third Thursday of the month. But if life comes along and does something, it might be a little different. And we'll have it from 11 to 3. And what they can do is just show up, bring the items that we collect. You don't have to have it sorted. You'll kind of find your groove with it. Maybe if you have a lot of things, you'll want to pre-sort. They don't have to be washed. They do need to be empty. So if you could empty everything out before you bring it in, and then we'll have boxes on site, and you just put it in the box. They're labeled of the program that we're going to ship it in with. We're always on hand to help out with that. And it's a pretty fun community atmosphere. I see a lot of the same people. I see a lot of little kids coming in and doing it. I see a lot of older people. And I think one of the real strengths of the TerraCycle program is that it just raises awareness in your households of how much waste that you're generating that can't be recycled. And just when you're at the shelf making those choices, you'll see the TerraCycle label on some products and know that those brands are taking responsibility for the full circle of their product, including the packaging. Yeah.
We had a chance to and like to continue to announce on the Climate Buzz, when you're having a TerraCycling day, so people can get out. I understand you had a great turnout this last one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it seems like it's getting more and more popular.
It is, yeah. It's growing. And we should say, if anybody wants to know when they are, if you go to the website, which is just westvillagemarket.com, you'll see a contact us form. And you can say, add me to the email list for TerraCycle. And that's all you'll get an email about when we're having them and what we take.
Good. So I noticed, too, we were talking about the food waste article, and one of the big answers to kind of helping deal with food waste is trying to turn it into compost. And my understanding is West Village Market, it kind of has a composting program themselves, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about that.
Great, thanks. Well, Danny's Dumpsters picks up our compost. We have like 5 big compost bins in the back, and everything from produce that can't be reused or donated goes into the compost bin. Just any food waste that they have in the deli goes into the compost bins. And soon we're trying to get compostable, biodegradable packaging for our grab-and-go deli. That's one of the sorest spots for me in the store, is that we have to use this plastic packaging. And it used to be recyclable until China stopped taking everybody's recyclables. So now it just has to go in the trash. It's not truly recycled. So it just kills me. So we're trying to get compostable containers, and then you'll be able to bring those back to us as well, and we'll recycle those. We'll compost those.
Yeah. Are a lot of businesses in town taking advantage of composting? Are you kind of aware of it?
I think so.
Yeah, that it's pretty kind of a consistent thing. That Danny's Dumpster, is that kind of the local composting
and he serves
folks in town?
He serves a lot of local restaurants, lots of them. And there's just a great group in terms of food waste I wanted to mention. Please. It's through, one of the main players is the Asheville Buncombe Food Policy Group, but they have a quarterly meeting. So people are involved, like Food Waste Solutions, who they go around and they will pick up from caterers or from universities any excess food, and they will deliver it like to 12 baskets, for instance, or other places, so the food can still be consumed, which is even better, of course, than composting. But if you go to, I think the best way to get there would be go to wncfoodwaste.org. Or you can follow them on Instagram at WNC Food Waste, and you'll get a lot of good information about what's going on locally.
Yeah, we'd like to get them on the show, too, at some point.
Oh, gosh, you sure would.
It's kind of an important story of climate change, too, for sure. So, well, we got to take a short break here on the Climate Buzz, and we'll be right back. This is the Climate Buzz on Asheville FM. I'm Dr. Bob, along with Kiely Sheehan today in the studio. And Roseanne and Karina also joining us from the West Village Market. And I understand you two have a green tip of the day for our listeners.
Okay, one of our newest programs at the market of things that we accept, and this is one that I think has driven people crazy for a long time, are those ties that come on your kale and your greens, and those little plastic tabs that come on like loaves of bread and things like that. We now have a box, and this is not a TerraCycle thing. You can bring them anytime. There's a box in our produce department and drop those off for recycling. So
all right. And how about you, Roseanne? You got a green tip for our listeners?
I do. It's nothing new, but just a reminder for people just to try to reduce your soft plastic use. Plastic bags, bring your own bag, and wrap in things like beeswax wrapper.
Oh, I have those.
Do you?
Yeah, I
Awesome.
like those. They're really cool. Yeah. They're these sheets that you use instead of like a plastic wrap or saran wrap, and they mold down. They're reusable, and they'll mold down to the top of the bowl or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. They're neat. Yeah.
You know, the plastic bag, you know, I know we've just finished, we've been talking about on the show about the survey that the city of Asheville is interested to see how the residents feel about, you know, kind of eliminating plastic bags and styrofoam containers. Right. And fortunately, it was last day of April was the last day to give your public input. But I'm excited that maybe, you know, that we could eliminate this in the city, and people can kind of be, you know, kind of helped along to learn new behaviors and ways of, you know, living without these plastic bags, which, you know, when you go to the Ingles or the big grocery stores, you know, it's just, there's just no thought to, you know, that maybe we could live without these, you know, and you watch you know, they don't know, it's fine, but I don't understand why they don't know sometimes, you know, but they just, you know, they'll just put a few items in a bag, and then they'll double wrap it, and then they'll go to the next one. And somebody walks out with like 15, 20 bags of things that end up probably in the landfill, right? And,
or the river.
Yeah.
Or the river.
Yeah.
Or in the trees beside the river, on the riverbank when they blow up. Yeah, I read the comments when I filled out my plastic waste survey, and I was really heartened to see a lot of people giving examples of where removing plastic bags from use in groceries in a city had really changed their own behaviors when they lived somewhere else, or they had a lot of examples of where it works, which I was heartened by. I thought, and some just a lot of encouragement for Asheville to live up to its reputation as a clean and green city.
One of the things that when you filled the survey out, after you gave your answer, you could see how everybody else responded too, and
comments. Yeah, those are and then the people's individual comments.
And I really think Asheville, by a large majority, is favoring a plastic bag ban and a styrofoam ban. Now it's up to city officials to decide whether they're going to follow through or not with that. So. Well, Roseanne, Karina, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you so much for all you do in our community. I hold the West Village Market close to my heart. My daughter worked there for a while, and I've been coming there forever, and it's just a wonderful place to walk in and feel that sense of community. So I just want you to know, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate the conversation and all the work.
Likewise.
Thanks for listening to the Climate Buzz podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please share with your friends and find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, where we promise to keep you up to date with all the latest climate buzz. We invite you to check out Asheville FM at www.ashevillefm.org, where you can listen live. Go to the Climate Buzz homepage with archives of our latest shows, as well as explore all of the wonderful Asheville FM radio programs that inspire our listeners to build connections across communities and to discover new music and ideas.